Persona 4 Golden was recently released on the PC, and if you're new to the series, there can be a lot to take in at first, and there's a lot of things that are easy to miss. Members of the community can often forget what it's like to play Persona for the first time, and so it can be pretty difficult if you're not used to JRPGs. This video is going to give you some good general information to start off, as well as good tips and tricks to try to make your experience a little bit better. However, I cannot possibly cover everything in one video. These are just things that I was able to come up with talking to my friends and going over some of our first experiences. So feel free to comment down below with any additional questions, and I will try to help out as many people as I can. So without further ado, let's just kind of jump into it. Alright, first things first is multiple save files. You have 16 save slots in this game, and I recommend that you use them. It is always good to have backups in case anything goes wrong, especially if you're a first timer. I recommend creating a new save probably about every in-game week in case you ever want to go back. Just be warned that once you get into the late November months in game, there are a series of decisions that you have to make in order to get the good and the true endings. The game will prompt you to save before you make those decisions, and I recommend that any save after that point, you definitely make it a new save file in case you mess something up and you ruin your chance at getting the rest of the content in the game. It's incredibly unforgiving, and it ends up being a trap for a lot of players. Even I missed the true ending on my most recent playthrough at the very end of the game on the last day, and I'm someone who's played this game multiple times. Thankfully, I did have a save that was right before it, but always have backups. It's just a good habit to have, even if you're using a guide for your playthrough. Personas have 5 stats. It's important to know what each one of them does. Strength will increase the damage of your physical attacks, as well as your basic attack damage. Magic will increase the damage dealt by magic skills. Endurance will decrease the amount of damage taken from all sources. Agility determines your turn order as well as your hit and evasion chances. And luck determines the likelihood of you landing a critical hit or sustaining a critical hit. When fusing personas and determining what skills to learn, the most important stats to pay attention to are if a persona has better strength or magic when determining what skills are best to learn. Persona is a series that does have naming conventions for the skills, but it can be a little bit of a learning curve to understand it. So in general, for elemental skills, Agi means fire, Bufu means ice, Zio means lightning, Garu means wind, Mudo means darkness, Hama means light, and Megiddo will mean almighty. Mudo and Hama skills are insta-kill skills if they land. If an enemy is weak or strong against them, will increase or decrease their chance of being hit, respectively. Almighty damage is something that enemies are not weak to, but is also something that cannot be resisted. Almost. There are very few subset of enemies that resist almighty damage, but it is extremely uncommon, and not even the hardest bosses in the game will typically have this trait. However, these skills are learned very late into the game, but are extremely useful. Also, for how strong a skill is, there is a similar naming convention as well. For example, Zio is for lightning damage, Zionga is for medium damage, and Ziodyne is for heavy damage, with Dyne pretty much always being the strongest version of any skill. For light and dark skills, it goes from Hama to Hamayan and Mudo to Mudun. And for Almighty, it goes Megiddo, Megiddola, and Megiddola-on. If the ability starts with Ma, then it is a multi-target skill, such as Ma Bufu and Ma Mudun will target all enemies. The exception to this are Megiddo skills, which are always multi-target. Magic skills do have a nice little pattern for their naming conventions. Unfortunately, the same is not true for physical skills. So I do recommend trying to read up on what each skill does. But the important ones to remember early on in the game are going to be Rampage and Swift Strike, which are multi-target skills that can hit multiple times on each enemy. Also, it's important to note that physical skills are the only type of skills in the game that can critically strike. Magic cannot crit. A crit will give you a knockdown and deal additional damage, similar to attacking an enemy's weakness, and will make up for most enemies not being weak to physical skills in the first place. For buffing skills, there's also a naming convention. Tsukukaja increases your hit and evasion chances, Tarukaja increases your power, and Rakukaja increases your defense. The debuffing variants of these skills have similar names, such as Sakunda, Tarunda, and Rakunda. The Ma variants of each buffs and debuffs will affect either all the party members for buffs or all the enemies for debuffs. Buffs and debuffs are incredibly important, especially in boss fights. Decreasing an enemy's chance to hit you, chance to evade you, as well as decreasing their defense and attacking power, in combination with buffing your own stats, can make a fight go from frustratingly difficult to completely trivial. The other important skills related to stats are going to be Dekaja, which removes enemy buffs, and Dekunda, which removes ally debuffs. When using multi-target attacking skills, keep in mind that if you knock down a single enemy, you will get a once more. If you are optimizing for damage, it is often best to use a multi-target skill, even if only one enemy is weak to it, so long as the other enemies are not immune to that type of elemental damage. Also keep in mind that multi-target physical attacks do have a chance to critically strike on every enemy that is hit, and a single critical hit will give you a knockdown and thus giving you another once more. This makes multi-target physical skills incredibly scary to be on the receiving end of, but also very useful to use from the player perspective. All out attacking has a little bit of nuance to it, so always remember that the game will check after you knock down an enemy to see if all enemies are down before asking you if you want the all out attack. This means that if there are 3 enemies and 2 of them are already knocked down, and then you kill the last enemy with an attack that would not have knocked it down, you will not get the option to use an all out attack. Remember that attacking an enemy's weakness while they are down will inflict Dizzy, which will make it so that the enemy loses its next turn. Attacking a downed enemy with an element they are not weak to does have about a 50% chance to inflict Dizzy anyways. It is sometimes useful to not all-out attack if you can Dizzy the enemy and get a free set of turns. Your all-out attack damage is determined by how much damage you deal with all of your party members' basic attacks, so having better weapons will increase your all-out attack damage, but will not directly affect how much damage your skills do. Instead, the best weapons in the game are typically the ones that have other stats attached to them rather than the ones that simply deal the most amount of damage. For resource management, physical skills are going to be your best friend. It is much easier to restore HP compared to SP. A persona with a multi-target physical skill is a godsend for getting through most of the generic enemies as you dungeon crawl. Doing side quests for the Fox and subsequently leveling the Hermit social link will also make it easier and cheaper to restore SP in the dungeon. This set of quests is automatically unlocked after getting past the first dungeon and unlocking the second dungeon of the game. The first dungeon will be the hardest from the resource management perspective. Stocking up on something such as tap soda from the vending machines can make the resource management slightly easier. When navigating in a dungeon, if you find the stairs to a floor, you can always press the fast travel button to go up that set of stairs no matter where you are on the floor. This means that you can keep exploring a floor after finding a set of stairs and have a get out of jail free button if you ever find yourself in a bad situation. You can also always fast travel to the previous floor if you have not found the staircase yet. However, this will reset your progress on the floor that you are currently on, and if the floor is randomly generated, which most of them are, you'll get a new layout when you come back. It's not recommended to use the previous floor, but if you are in a pinch, it can be nice in a tough situation. For getting experience points and money, it is best not to fight every enemy that you encounter, but to try to find gold shadows. Finding a gold shadow can be a little bit annoying, but a common method is to keep going back and forth between 2 floors in a dungeon until you see a gold shadow and then chase it. This is also useful for floors that have the same layout every single time you revisit them. Remember that getting into another encounter while chasing a gold shadow will cause the gold shadow to despawn. When fighting a gold shadow, they have incredibly high chances to dodge attacks as well as resistance or immunity to most magic attacks. For these reasons, having skills like Ma Secunda and any physical attacks are very useful against them. It is not stated anywhere in the game, but gold shadows will take significantly more damage from almighty attacks. And while almighty skills cannot be learned until much later in the game, do remember that your all-out attack deals almighty damage. Trying to knock down gold shadows with physical skills is a very effective early game strategy before you can learn your first Megiddo skill. When leveling up, you will notice that your characters will level faster than your personas. This is intentional as the game encourages you to fuse higher level personas as you progress, opposed to using the same persona for the entire playthrough. Although it is possible to beat the entire game only using Izanagi, I just don't simply recommend it. It is useful to find a Persona 4 Gold Infusion calculator online to get an idea of what you can summon at what level and what arcana those personas will be. Always save before fusing personas when using a fusion calculator, because it can be inaccurate and I don't want you to accidentally waste your money. You can always go back to any dungeon that you have previously cleared. To do this, simply talk to the party member to go to their dungeon, or talk to Rize or Teddy for any other options. If you go through a dungeon for the second time, there is a boss that you can fight at the end. These fights are fairly challenging, but will give you a good reward, which usually is a weapon for a party member if cleared as early as possible, and will also give you a boost to your courage stat. For the day-to-day life part of the game, it is best spending most of your daytime phases to try to hang out with social links. Finding different people to talk to and joining clubs are important for building up social links, as well as accepting part-time jobs. If you want to experience all the content in the game, it is extremely important to level up Adachi's and Marie's social links. Adachi is a little weird in that you have to spend time with him in the day and at night, so look for him either at Junes during the day or the shopping district at night. Once you hear Dojima mention that Adachi is always slacking off. Once you hit rank 6 with Adachi's social link, you are essentially maxed, as the rest will happen automatically with story progress. Marie's social link will also take some time before you can get it max leveled, as you do need to have people join your party for elements in her social link to happen. So don't worry if you cannot progress and it says that you need a spark before you can hang out with Marie again. These two social links are the only ones that will be necessary to get the true ending in the game, but there are additional steps beyond just leveling up the social links. If you do not want to use a guide, once again, I always recommend that you have backup saves for later in the game once you have to make other story-related decisions, so as not to miss out on either the golden exclusive content and the true ending of the game. Before spending time with anyone, make sure to have a matching persona with the same arcana as that social link to not waste any points when hanging out with them. The only exception to this are turning in quests to the Fox, which do not require a matching persona, and when you first unlock a social link. If you get a social link to max rank, which is usually rank 10, then there is no reason to hang out with that person again. The only exception to this is at the very end of the game in the months of January and early February, where it would become incredibly obvious and all of your party members who you have max rank with will ask you to hang out with them again. As far as priority goes, increasing the social link ranks of your party members will give them additional skills and abilities in the dungeon. It is much more useful compared to the generic social links that you find in the game. Rize, who you unlock later, also has some very good skills to unlock through her social link despite not being someone that is used directly in combat. The Fox is also useful because it will decrease the amount that it costs to heal SP. Some social links will require you to progress with other social links to unlock them. You need to rank up Strength to be able to unlock Moon, and you need to rank up Devil to be able to unlock Death. Also keep in mind that Kanji and Naoto will require you to talk to other NPCs before you're able to start their social links. Remember that enemies drop materials which can be sold to Daidara for a little extra income, but in addition, giving enough materials will allow him to make better equipment for your party. He does not add to his stock normally, he only sells better equipment by buying your materials. This is something that enough people do miss the first time that they play the game. If you ever find yourself taking a lot more damage than you expect, be sure to check your armor and see if it needs to be upgraded. To go out at night, even if Dojima is home, you will need a nighttime part-time job. The easiest one to get is the dishwasher, which can be unlocked at the bulletin board after May 25th. You never actually need to work this job, simply being able to do it is enough to let you leave the house at night. Most night phases can be spent either reading or working at your table to gain different social stats. The janitor and the tutor jobs, which can be done at night, also have social links associated with them. Rain is not just aesthetic in this game, it does affect what you can do on a given day. If it is raining, there are many social links you cannot spend time with, so it is often important to know what social links you can spend time with on these days if you are trying to optimize your time. The Sun Link, which is either Yumi from the drama club or Ayane from the band, can usually hang out at most ranks if it is raining. Turning a quest into the fox is also possible if it is raining, and always remember that accepting a quest from the fox does not take any time. Naoto can also be hung out with later if it is raining, but their social link is not unlocked until much later in the game. If no one is available, you can always go to Aya and take on the Beef Bowl Challenge, which will give you 3 social stats for 1 time slot, which is incredibly valuable. Another good option is after you have the scooter unlocked, you can take a ride, which will give you a boost to your courage stat, and eventually work towards unlocking additional areas to explore. Lastly, you can always go fishing while it is raining as well. To unlock fishing, you need to talk to the boy at the shrine. If you give him the drink that he asks for, he will give you a little bug in exchange. Going out at night to the convenience store will reveal a different kind of shop. Here you can give a bug to the owner, who will feed it to her fish. The fish will then spit out a hook, which you can give to the old man by the river to get the river rod. Eventually, the kid at the shrine will lose his bug net. After hearing this, you can go out at night to the shrine and talk to a lady who hangs around there, and she will say that she found the net. If you take the net back to the boy, he will give the net to you instead. You can now use this to catch bugs after talking to the kid and asking him how to find bugs. These bugs are then used for bait when fishing. Fishing and catching bugs is required if you want to be able to finish the very last side quest for the fox, so keep this in mind. Tanaka's shopping channel can sell some very useful items, so always make sure to check it every single week starting on Saturday. And my last tip in the game is once you hit level 75 in the game, summoning Yoshitsune is pretty much guaranteed to make the rest of the game a complete joke, as he is strictly the best damage dealing persona in the entire game, has no weaknesses, and is very easy to get a very optimized Yoshitsune. It's just one that I recommend. And the last tip here is pretty much an easy one. If ever getting into an argument over who best girl is, always make sure to respect each other's opinions and see that not everyone likes the same character. However, deep down we all know that it is Kanji.